Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Azarov's chess channel, and welcome to the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge in 2020. It's again the quarterfinal stage. It's Daniil Dubov against Sergey Karjakin. In the first day, Daniil Dubov really crushed, I think, Sergey Karjakin. The second day, they played really great games. Sergey Karjakin won the match game in this so-called Armageddon game, and now in day three, they again faced each other, and now it was a really tough moment, I think, for Sergey Karjakin, as Daniil Dubov won the first two games. He had now to win the game in order to make something happen, in order maybe to force again this Armageddon game. Let's see now what happened in their match. So d4 played by Daniil Dubov. I really like Daniil Dubov's style. He plays really a direct chess, really great attacking formations. He played also great novelties so far in the tournament, because I think I've read some articles in which it says that Daniil Dubov will again be the second of Magnus Carlsen in the next World Championship match of Magnus. So he can really help out the world champion in order to maybe stay with his title, because Daniil Dubov is, I think, a great theoretician, and you'll see also now in this game how he handled really well this very nice old Indian opening. So d4, as I said, knight to f6 played by Sergey Karjakin. We have c4, we have d6, knight to c3, and bishop to f5. So this is really a provocative move. We're basically forcing white to play the move queen to b3, but then the queen is a little bit dislocated on the board. Here Daniil Dubov plays, I think, a great move, really nice positional move, f3, forcing basically black to retreat, because there is this serious threat of the next move e4, and you see bishop to d7. So I have to be honest, I really already don't like Sergey Karjakin's position, because basically he broke a couple of rules in chess. He played with the same piece twice in the opening. Here Daniil Dubov simply plays e4, grabs now his very powerful central control, and we have now e5. Okay, here we have sort of a Perch defense setup, similar to the Perch defense, because what black would love to do, that white takes now d takes e5. After d takes e5, the position would be much more simplified. Then maybe here Sergey Karjakin could search his outpost on d4, because white would have these two advanced pawns, and then you wouldn't have any pawns to kick away a potential knight outpost. But here Daniil Dubov plays simply knight from g to e2, simply keeping the dynamics in the game, and we have now bishop to e7. So you see, this bishop's activity is not it's not really good here in black's position. The bishops are too passive. They're not having such good diagonals. Even if you try something like bishop to c6 in order to improve at least this bishop, then you get, of course, d5, and you get again kicked away. Then you again lost another tempo with the bishop. So bishop to e3, very natural move, very easy to find now the best moves for Daniil Dubov. He has, of course, now the space advantage. These three pawns are really tough to break. And here c5 played by Sergey Karjakin. Again, he hopes, I think, that Daniil Dubov simply takes d takes c5. Then again, black would have potential knight outposts on d4. But here Daniil Dubov simply plays d5 and prevents this knight to jump on c6. And as I said, I really don't like the setup of black's, because black has already played with the bishop to d7, and in the common old Indian defense, you're trying to get your knight here on d7. So you see your bishop stands in the way a little bit, and then you could maybe try some a6 b5 pawn breakthroughs, or like in the King's Indian g6 f5. But still, as I said, many tempos lost. Still, you don't have a good square for a knight on b8. So it's really so far a bad position for Sergey Karjakin. Knight to h5, here queen to d2, and now h6. So what Sergey Karjakin's idea here is to get rid of his bad bishop, because if we I always like to evaluate positions by their bishop's activity and the pawn structure. So I mentioned it, I think, now 100 times in my videos, that basically when we evaluate positions, as I said, the bishop here on e7 is blocked out by this centralized pawn. So what Sergey Karjakin is trying to do here is to get rid of his bad dark square bishop, and maybe continue his game with now a good light square bishop, because this light square bishop still has a good diagonal, and on the other hand, white would be left with really a bad bishop on f1. But here Daniil Dubov plays, I think, a great move, queenside castling. Okay, you can play your bishop to g5, but I'll play g3, because what you don't want to do is, as I said, to leave this bad bishop situation. Now we have sort of a flexibility here with h3, h2, g3, f3. Now there is time even to push the pawn on f4, really get some kind of a pawn storm here on the king side, and still Black needs more moves to castle. Black needs more moves to develop his minor pieces, and Black is really endangered because f4 will follow even if you trade off the dark square bishops, even if you get your strategical goal, but still White has the possibility to attack. So bishop takes e3, queen takes e3, and now h6. Here Sergey Karjakin is trying to counterattack on the queen side, common idea in old Indian setups, and now we have f4, really a healthy idea here by Daniil Dubov. We have a knight to f6. So there is already this tricky position. If you try, for instance, something like f6, because the positional threat here is to play f takes e5. Then after d takes e5, White would continue here with this supported pass pawn. So Black wouldn't love to do that to happen. So here, if you try even f6 to cement something, to cement somehow the center, here the problem is you get this move f5, and your knight is a little bit endangered. You could really lose your knight in a couple of moves. So it's really already, as I said, a tricky position here for Black to handle. In the game, after f4, we have knight to f6, and we have h3. Queen to e7. So what again Sergey Karjakin is trying here is, after potential f takes e4, f takes e5, to play the move queen to e5, and again leave White with sort of a strategical problem, which would be this backward pawn. But again, Daniil Dubov finds great positional ideas. He plays the move knight to f3, knight to g1, with the preparation to play knight to f3. He wants to challenge this this e5 pawn even further. In the game b5, okay, here Sergey Karjakin has his fun on the queen side, but now comes this move f takes e5, and the problem is that you basically cannot take with the queen. That's the main issue here, because you get knight to f3, and if you try to take queen takes g3, then you get rook to g1, and your queen is trapped, which is really incredible what Daniil Dubov has prepared here. So you would be forced, after the move knight to f3, to retreat with your queen to e7, but then you get a very, very nasty move e5. So splitting the pawn chain here, we have even the possibilities to continue to push this pawn on d6. So it's really, really, as I said, a bad position. So here, after f takes e5, d takes e5 had to be played by Sergey Karjakin, and now d6, simply cutting off this connection between the queen and the pawn. Queen to e6, you see, you don't have good squares, and queen to c5. Finally, castling by Sergey Karjakin. He has lost a pawn. What he can rely on is maybe a potential queenside attack with rook to b1, b8, to rook to c8, maybe trying to get some kind of activity on the c and b file. But it's a little bit too late. Here, knight to f3, simply healthy developing move, knight to c6, and now queen to e3. Getting out of this potential tactics, here b takes c4 was played, and now knight to d5. So the problem is you cannot take the knight on d5, you get e takes d5 and the fork on the knight and the queen, so you lose a piece. So that's why rook to c8 was played. But there is this problem, as I said here, knight to c7, attacking the queen. The queen doesn't have good squares. The queen is a little bit trapped here. That's why Sergey Karjakin was forced to give up the exchange here. After d takes c7, we have rook to c8. So king to b1, it's time now for Daniil Dubov to first secure the king, of course, to somehow reorganize a little bit, regroup, and then go into a favorable endgame, because of course Daniil Dubov is up the exchange and he can really rely on some endgame, on some good endgame. So here rook to c7, we have rook to h2. The idea is a very nice defensive idea, because here we want to have a good protection of our b2 pawn, and maybe even include this rook on d2. Then we would have a very nice battery on the d file. We have c3 you see very tricky move here by Sergey Karjakin. He opens the position in front of the king. Here b takes c3 and now knight to a5. Of course, the idea is now to play bishop to b5, somehow trade off the bishops and then cement the knight somehow on c4, get the queen somehow into the game. But that's why here this move, rook to h2, was a great defensive move by Daniil Dubov. Okay, as I said, he has to defend here. When he defends, if he defends, then he will probably win the game because, as I said, he's up the exchange, but still more good defensive moves to make. So rook to b2, we have bishop to b5. You see Sergey is attacking also in great shape here because now there is this positional threat to play knight to c4. That's why knight to d2, preventing this idea, and we have bishop takes f1, rook takes f1, and now knight to c4. Knight takes c4, rook takes c4, and now queen to d3. This pawn is lost anyway, so there's no way you can protect it. You shouldn't even bother about this pawn. Leave the pawn hanging and again try to regroup here. Try to defend first your king. Here we have rook to a4 and now queen to c2, attacking the rook, and queen to c4. Again, you cannot defend this pawn. It's not a problem, but now rook to e1. We want black to take, and then of course there will be some overload motifs because black is also a little bit vulnerable on the 8th rank, so then the king has to come on h7, so there are maybe some tactics going on here after potential knight to e4, but Sergey Karjakin simply took knight takes e4, and now we have king to a1. And here Sergey Karjakin, I think, makes the main mistake. He has defended now well, he has played on a great counterattack. It's really unclear, this position. Still, black has also good chances, maybe even to win this game. But here the move g6 is really a bad one. Simply, I think a better idea is somehow to try to take this pawn on g3. Of course, so far it's not possible because you get checkmated on b8. But here he played g6, maybe f5. Here is simply better. At least you have pushed your pawn further. You have now two connected pawns here. That could be really problematic, I think, for white. If this pawn marches on here on e4, e3, it could be a problematic endgame. But okay, here g6 after queen to b3. Here I think it was finally time now for Sergey Karjakin to simply take knight takes g3. After queen takes c4, rook takes c4, I think this is again an unclear position, because if white takes now the pawn on e4, we could take this pawn, and still there is this position 3 versus 1 on the king side. This could be also a good endgame maybe for black. Maybe it's playable, I'm not sure, but as I said here, after the move queen to b3, Sergey tried queen to c6. Of course, he wants to keep the dynamics because he has to win this game. And here Daniil Dubov simply played queen to b8. We have king to h7, and now here queen takes e5, and basically it was game over in this position. Okay, you can take this pawn, but now rook to c2, everything is pinned. Rook to a3 protecting, but now after queen to e7, here in this position, Sergey Karjakin resigned because, as I said, he needed a win in order to keep him in the game. Whatever you do, maybe you can try rook to a2, rook takes a2, knight takes a2, or something like that to get a draw. But here in this position, as I said, after the move queen to e7, Sergey Karjakin resigned because there is also this threat to play queen takes f7, followed with rook to e8, and it was Daniil Dubov who is moving out now into the semifinals. Congratulations to Daniil Dubov. I think it's deserved because okay, Sergey Karjakin played great games in the group stage, but in this direct duel, I think Daniil Dubov has shown more attacking possibilities, better attacking games, and that's why I think he deserves to be in the semifinals. We'll see what will happen tomorrow. Ding Liren is also in the semifinals after a shocking Armageddon game, and also we have now the clash tomorrow. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Hikaru Nakamura in the semifinals, but still that will happen only after another match game. So My predictions are simply that Magnus Carlsen will win this tournament. I think he'll crush now Hikaru. I think he's very motivated after their fight a little bit over behind the scenes. But okay, we'll see what will happen. I think this has been a great tournament so far. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games from the series. Here is the link, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.